Alrighty, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Communications and Cigars. I'm your host, John Crook, and well, we kind of got a lot of things going on here tonight. So tonight's episode is entitled "On the Bench: Mobile Vehicle Repeater Setup," and we're also going to go ahead and be integrating some cross mode, actually. Stuff going on. So it's kind of going to be an interesting episode this evening. But what I thought would be kind of fun to do is to have a kind of a chance to have a situation where we can kind of do a fun little thing on the bench. So you see the bench behind me? Okay. Yeah, that's a mess. So I got a lot of projects going on. I mean, I got new batteries right here. These are my Ryobi new batteries, and you see I have the Ryobi drill kind of here, and you see that's my soldering stuff, and there's more cable stuff here for Raspberry Pi project, and there's a router there. Okay, anyways, big mess. So we're going to be coming to you from this bench, this desk, which is probably not going to be any cleaner or anything on there. But what are we going to do tonight? Well, we want to be able to do a couple things. One, I want to be able to take this radio. I want to talk into this device, which is then going to be connected to one of these devices, which is then going to come out on this device. Now, what's the big whoopity-doo about that? Well, what's the big whoopity-doo about it is this is a DMR radio. This is a DMR radio. This is a non-DMR radio. And, as I got things beeping over here, this is a non-DMR radio also, just fusion radio. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to work on this project together. Now, the reason I say we're going to work on this project together is because I have it written down here, paper, notes. Yep, that's right. I guess a quick side note, if you're ever going to go ahead and do projects like this, have a lot of scrap paper. So we're going to kind of work through a couple things. I know it's probably going to work one way tonight and not both ways, largely based on the fact that there's a core sense thing with some radios that we have to figure out that's going to go ahead and cause an issue. So anyways, with that being said, it's communications and cigars. So we are going to talk about communications, and we are also going to talk about cigars. So one of the things I know that we kind of talked about a little bit in the past, and I got asked once before, John, what's a good humidor? So the humidor really comes into, that plays a key, intricate part of if you're going to have cigars, if you're going to have a lot of cigars. And one of the things about that is humidor is going to keep your cigars at this nice even level. You want about 70 degrees. That's what they recommend for having cigars as a temperature, is about 70 degrees. Alrighty. Now, in addition to that, you want a good humidity, and happens to be humidity is about 70%. So it kind of goes hands in hand. Now, you will hear some people that will go and saying, yeah, you can get by with the cigar temperature of 65 to 70 degrees. And then some people say you can go maybe 65% humidity to 75% humidity, but really 70% is a great humidity, great number to shoot for, as well as the cigar temperature is you want to keep it in that range. Why do you want to do that? Well, you want to do that for a couple reasons when you have cigars. So the first thing we go ahead and talk about when we are worried about cigars is making sure that they're not too wet and then they're not too dry. That's going to cause a problem. That's where humidity is going to come into play a factor. The other thing is you don't want a cigar that's too cold, because if you have something that's too cold, it can start to break down and be problematic. If you have a temperature too hot for a cigar, well, guess what? It's going to help the dry out process, even if your humidity is great, and you're going to have a problem. the thing about humidors are there's a lot of different ones. There are traveling humidors, which kind of look like a small little case and have the little silica packets that you can put in there, kind of that keep the dryness and humidity at a perfect level. And then the other thing you want to go ahead and deal with when you talk about humidors is not only keeping it at a good temp and for humidity, but also one thing you got to think about, especially depending on where you live. Some humidors are great for keeping the temperature down, but sometimes where you live, like me up here in Wisconsin, we have to keep that temperature sometimes up. So you may need to find a humidor, if you have a humidor at home, that is hot and cold, or heater and cooler unit, where lots of times the humidor is going to go ahead and be a cooler unit. Now, the question comes into play is, John, what do I have? Well, I actually have a cooler unit. And the reason being is that year-round, my cabinet can stay above 65. It will keep cool in the summer. It will keep it cool in the summer. But in the wintertime, there's no heater in it, so it really doesn't run too much in the wintertime on there. I have it near kind of I think of kind of a floor vent, or near, well, maybe not. It's kind of across away from it. But anyways, it doesn't really get too cold. So that's the nice part about it. If you live in the upper areas where there's a lot of cool temps and stuff like that, you may keep it in a basement, then it's not going to go ahead and be able to key up on there. Or keyed up on there. So it's going to stay kind of this really cool temp. And that's what you really don't want it to do. Alrighty, so before we get going here, let's go ahead and take a look in the chat box here. I'm looking at like a bunch of different cameras, so I apologize if I see anybody and I do not get anybody on there. But I kind of got a camera here, got a camera on the screen I'm looking at over here, and then we're going to have a camera looking down on the bench. So first of all, Andy, good evening, Scout75. Ben Landley, Liberty Cave, WS7PB, The Smoking Ape, good evening. Marvin Dressen, it looks like. Liberty Cave again. Okay, Phil, good evening on there to Phil. Nico, Roger, FEP Labs Radio, Chuck, KB8YIT, and John Hummel Newell, VE5JHN. Thank you for coming in all the way from up there in VE5 land. And let's see here. We got Don, N5SKT. And who else do we have here? Christopher, I'm gonna slaughter name. Colocound, I believe, is that how you pronounce it? I apologize. Paul, good evening. Wild Cascade Radio. Ham Radio Dude, good evening. Thank you for there. Hey, good show you had there earlier. MWPCBVOWGF. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that either. Evan, good evening. Joseph Collins, good evening. Striker, K7IBU, 45 Auto, Lawn Mower, and Reed, AB8AS. Also, too, is if you are joining us from Ham Nuggets and TO show, thank you for coming over there. Ham Radio Dude, also, he has his show on there. He had a little show on there also earlier. The Smoking Ape, he has his channel on there. And I don't see Chuck, but I'm pretty sure he'll pop in hopefully a little bit later. So Chuck has his KK6USY Adventures. So, you know what? Check those guys out, too. They have a lot of good information that they do on there. Tinkercat, I saw, was TO's thing on there. And if you saw, it wasn't last weekend, it was weekend before, they had a great discussion on Coffee and Ham Radios. I think it was Sunday morning. That morning about the 3D printer. So it was really, really totally awesome on there. So they got a lot of good ideas on there. And you know what? We all are a community. We all are friends here. So you know what? Don't be afraid to support their channels. Go take a look. Go ahead. If you like my channel, please, by all means, hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button on these videos. I do try to do content. Once again, Communications Cigars, we're all over the place. We're not just Ham Radio. We're Ham Radio. We are GMRS. We are FRS. We are MERS. We are Marine. We are CB, we are public safety, we are business, and all in between. Some people said, hey, you want to talk about aviation sometimes? And I think I might. Actually, I might have a person in mind that we could discuss aviation radios a little bit about on there. So with that also too being said, let me pop up my email address on here too. If you do ever have an idea for the show, comment for the show, you have, hey, more questions. That's where tonight's episode kind of spurred out of, where, hey, what was I going to do for an episode this week? Someone said, John, you mentioned last week, you mentioned on a few other things like that. You were talking about the physiology, the anatomy and physiology of the radios, or repeaters, I should say. And someone said, hey, you showed up one of these boxes and stuff like that. What was it and stuff? And I said, you know what? That'd be a great idea. on there. And also too, we might have actually some interesting thing coming up here too, because I might be talking about RC cars here in a little bit. I'm getting back into RC cars after about 30 years being out of it, but the technology's changed so much. And the cool part about the technology is it's kind of a communication thing where a lot of these things now have transmitters, like telemetry transmitters. Absolutely amazing. So we may talk about that. But before we dig into things here, hot and heavy, people have gone ahead and asked, okay, John, what were you using last week? And can you tell us a little bit more about it? And I said, you know what? Not a problem. Let's go ahead and do that here. So let me actually pop over to my other camera here. So here's the bench here and stuff like that. So pardon the mess here, but we need to do that. So first of all, let's talk about what some of the tools you're going to need for tonight, or what I'm going to be using here. So first of all, because this radio on here is a 15 pin, if you notice, see how it says it's a 15 pin connector, like a monitor cable on there. I'm going to go, and I went on to Amazon. Yes, I do not like Amazon, but I went on there, and there it is, a 15 pin connector. But you know what's really cool about this? It has the screw down terminals. Let me get in there. Screw down terminals for that 15 pin connector. So here it is, actually out of the package here. It's really nice, really great on there. You could do that. Yeah, it's really simple and easy to do. And then you could just plug it right into the radio here. In this case, we're going to plug it right in there. And voila, now that gives us the test jig on there. Allows us to go on saying, hey, here's the deal. What do we do? What do we do? That kind of thing and that on there. A lot of people have asked, they said, John, what are you using for a radio here? Whoop. Does that work there? Yep. So this is a Maxon. I see it in the comments there. This is a Maxon data radio. Now this happens to be a VHF version on here. It is the model, I got to look at this here, SD671D as in Delta version 2 or V2. So you can sort of hex addict these. Okay. Normally it says 150 to 174, but you can hex edit on there a little bit. We're going to pull them down a little bit tonight on there. But the really cool, neat thing about this is, first of all, it's got a BNC connector. They're actually 10 watts. 10 watts on this little thing right here. And you know what really is cool about it, which I'm going to start actually working on right now, because we're going to need it here tonight because of the way the channels are set up. These radios are actually capable of 32 channels. Yes, 32 channels. You heard me right. So what's going to happen is that they're dip switch programmable, and I've thought about actually taking my own little soldering skills. So pop the cover off there, move that out of the side. So as you see here, 32 channels, and they are set by these little dip switches right here on there. And it is a hex switch, kind of trying to get it out of the light there. It is a hex switch. They actually have a little plastic coating over there. But what I'm going to do a little bit later here is, in order to change channels, I'm going to flip one of those on there. So it's really, 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 I love this radio, hands down. And here's why, folks. A couple of reasons why. This radio right here has the speaker outputs here. It has the microphone outputs here, has a power, and has everything on there. You could literally take a general speaker, connect it to here. You could take your microphone, connect it to here. You can, there's a bunch of things that you can do right out of this port right here. And if you wanted to, you could have this, if you have a certain frequency you like, or a certain repeater you monitor or something, analog or digital, because this will do FM with CT, CSS, and DCS. You know, if you want to change channels, you're going to have to flip these little dip switches here. Okay. But for the most part, 10 watts, I mean, I can get pretty far for 10 watts. And you know what, folks? I'm going to be honest with you. This ain't some cheapy, crappy little, like, hotspot radio. Yep, I said it, hotspot radio. They're like the little milliwatts. The reason they're milliwatts is because they suck for transmitter outputs. This comes in VHF. This comes in UHF. Like I said, this is version 2 hex editing. I do not recommend hex editing these. It is a pain in the derriere. I'm not even going to cover that, because you really got to know, pardon my French, what the hell you're doing. And if you don't, you're going to get lost and problematic on here. But guess what, folks? They're 150 to 174, normally 10 watts. I wonder what else could be in the 2 watt range in that 150 to 174 range. You got it. And MERS radio. So if you want to have this like as a MERS transmitter or something like that, that's what I do. As a matter of fact, and maybe I'll talk about this in another show, I connected the Maxon UDM series of wireless speaker microphone into one of these here, and I've actually worked with some UTV and ATV groups that we've put these on a MERS frequency, and voila, you just have this wireless microphone on you. And this wireless microphone then transmits in here, and then this thing transmits out on MERS frequencies. Or if you actually have a licensed, turn it around there because I know people are going to be asking about that. People have asked, like, what if I have a business frequency? Hey, great. You have a business frequency? I have business frequencies. You know, those kind of things like that. You can program up one of these, and basically you can walk around your house if you set it up right, and then have it on there. Oh, by the way, the UHF version, I think, goes 420 to 470. So it actually covers the ham band no hex editing. And that's why it's like, this is great. Okay, absolutely great. By the way, for those of you that are or are not aware of DMR, there's a couple tiers of DNR. There's tier 1 and there's tier 2 and tier 3. Tier 1 is kind of like, it's like it's a standard out there, but tier 2 is where we mostly reside, which is the repeater, the true 2-channel TDMA repeater or simplex communications. And tier 3 gets on up in the trunking. We don't have trunking in the ham bands. That's another topic. Kind of some days it'd be great, some days it wouldn't. But anyways, we don't have that in here. So we really reside in tier 2. These radios are fully capable of tier 2 operations. So you can actually put this on a repeater frequency and it will actually go ahead and work on there. So that is the cool part about these little radios on there. So just kind of show you, really simple internal in there. Now, what I'm going to go ahead and do is, first of all, like I said, I have some of my notes here, so I'm going to move my microphone a little bit so people can hear me still. But and what I'm going to do is I actually have a power supply off camera here. I'm going to turn it a little bit here, and I got all these radios here. So right now I have these two plugs here, which are going to go ahead and provide me power for the radio. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, first of all, is I have my orange as my positive, and I have my white, which is going to be my negative. So taking my little block here, I know that pin 4 is going to be DC in. Now, one of the things on these little test kind of jigs here that I'll show you is you see, I'm trying to get it in there. If you can see the camera, there you go. So see how it's not how you would think. So this is pin 8, 14. Okay, we'll even go over here. So you got 1, 6, 2, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then you got 3, 8, 14, 13, 4, 5, 15, and then it has a ground. Now that ground is your chassis kind of ground on there. I wouldn't recommend using the chassis ground as a power source ground. I would not on these radios. They have a ground on there. But anyways, kind of moving some things out of the way. Pin 4 here is going to be my positive lead. So I'm going to put that in there, and then we're going to screw it down here. Actually doing pretty good, surprisingly. All right, and then pin, or the white one here is actually my ground, and that happens to be pin 14, which is on the same side here. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to take, and we're going to lift this up. I'm going to put it in there. Actually, let me adjust my camera here a little bit more. There we go. Get a little bit more in view there. So now I have my power connected in there, and it's going off to the power supply that's offside here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to plug this into here. Now, normally I would go ahead and recommend doing the screws here. Normally there's little lock screws in there. The only reason I would say that is because it's a lot nicer and easier. But what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to turn on my radio. Now, yes, I am using a Maxon radio. I do actually like the Maxon product line for various reasons. But I turn it on there, and see, Communications and Cigars, comms and cigars. There we go. All right, so now we are on D1 here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to turn on this radio. Now, there is a little LED right there. Okay, it's hard to see on there, but I'm going to turn on my radio. Whoop, you know what? There's a critical flaw, my folks. Power supplies have an inherent flaw. You know what that flaw is? This, if it's not plugged in. Okay. You know, you'd think this was my first day. Alrighty. Take two. Alrighty, there we go. See the little light up there? Okay. It lit up there, right there. It transmitted on there. Now, if I am on the right frequency and everything like that, I should go, and when I transmit, that light should go green. Oh, look at that. It goes green right there. See? Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, I'm not going to hear anything. Well, duh. Okay. So, you can't do that, but here's what I'm going to go ahead and do. I always like to do a quick test. And what this quick test basically does is it says, hey, do I have transmittability? So pin number 3 is going to be my PTT pin. Now what I'm going to do is, because I'm hooking up cables, I always suggest disconnecting or powering off your stuff while you're doing that. And the reason being is because guess what? It's never going to fail. You're going to accidentally touch a wire, short something out, and zip, zap, boop. Your expensive project that you're working on has now just become a ghost. Okay, you have decided to let the spirits out. So here's what I did. Pin 3 on here is going to be the PTT. Okay, so pin 3 on the plug here. I connected a twisted pair. By the way, that's another thing too. If you don't have a good set of alligator clips, or if you have a good set of alligator clips but you're screwing down terminals, go ahead and get any sort of Cat 5 cable and then cut off a nice big chunk, okay, like I did here. Pull out the wires. They're usually stranded or braided together, and you got little screw-down wires. Now, here's what I'm going to go ahead and do. I'm going to turn on the radio again. See that little red light came on there real quick? See, it went off. It really shows up good on there. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is this is PTT. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and just tap it on ground somewhere. And you see how that went red? And actually what you can hear is, you can actually see it on here. It's actually keying up. So I know, guess what? So far things are going in the right direction. I know that it is transmitting. So right again, I'm going to go ahead and key. There it receives, green. I'm going to transmit. Voila. Now I'm going ahead and knowing it's transmitting. So there we go. We got that. Now I'm going to turn off the, once again, I'm going to connect wires. So what I'm going to do is power it off. I'm going to take this. I'm going to unscrew this because I'm not going to be using this obviously as a PTT anymore. That was just my test wire. You can never have enough wire. Now I know why my dad always had spools and spools and spools and spools of wire. All right, now I'm going to come over to this magic plug here. So yes, tonight I am interfacing. I love you guys with your comments. Let me answer some of the questions here. Okay, so first of all, Nico, can you control the power output easily? You have to do it through the programming, and the computer programming cable is just this. It's a USB cable to a 15-pin connector. Alrighty, that's what this is. Sorry, it's not in the camera there, but that's what this cable is right there. So yes, it's very easy to go ahead and do it. You go in there and you can turn it on and off and everything like that on there. So yeah, Roger, we'll fix it in post. Nope, I purposely knew I made a mistake on there. And yes, Scout 75, you make a correct thing. Any machine can be made a smoke machine and actually keep you warm with the flames. And no, you don't have, thank you, Fourth and Birch. No, I thought power supply had a Bluetooth energy no. Bluetooth is only when you eat blueberries. There we go. Thank you very much. Thank you. Alrighty. So now here's what we're going to do. I am interfacing it into a Yaesu radio. And the reason why is because I happen to have a Yaesu radio around, had a 10-pin connector, and had this cable sitting there. What did I have this cable sitting there? I had this cable sitting from one of these. And this is, if you know All-Star or anything like that, or Zello, when we get to our Zello interface episode. Foreshadowing. Anyways, once again, have a 25-pin connector on here, but I was able to interface this into an All-Star node and all that kind of jazz like that. So that's why I had this around. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do basically a little wiring. So I looked at it. Now, all these wires are wiring diagrams are actually found out on the internet. The internet is good for something besides stupid videos and things that kids should not be seeing. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to need a couple wires. So first of all, I'm going to need the brown wire. And this is, so people are asking me, what cable is this? This cable is a CT167. Now, they do make other cables. And I bought, let's see here. So this is a CT163. And I'm not endorsing anything. I'm basically just going ahead and saying, hey, Here's the cables I use for my stuff. Okay, so here's a CT, what did I say again? CT163. This one is a 10-pin into a DB9 and a 6-pin data, okay? And so I like that for a couple different reasons. If I'm interfacing something that has a DB9 connector, I can just rewire the DB9 connector, and then I can do that there. Now let me put this back and there, because I got cables all over the place. You can never have enough data cables. Oh, do we got a bot in here? Someone said something. Alrighty, what else do I have here? I have a couple different cables over here. You should see my bench. Here's a CT167 again. Yeah. So those are basically the two cables that I have on there, but you can really make it any there. Alrighty, so getting back to this. What we're going to do is we're going to be using a mic plus here, which is going to be the brown. We're going to be using the ground, which is shield. We're going to be using the red, which is PTT. We're going to be using the yellow, which is your speaker high. And then we're going to go ahead and be using the green, which is core. Now, I will give you a little heads up. I believe the core out of the radio is active high. And I'll explain why that's going to be problematic. But to ultimately determine if it is or isn't, we're going to show you how to measure core. Because this is one of the things that I think, I'll be honest with you, as a repeater maker or doing these projects like this, you gotta be with it. So I'm going to move the antenna out of the way here real quick, so I can actually see the radio. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn back on the radio here. I'm going to power this radio on here. Now, one of the other things I'm doing uniquely about this is both of these radios are VHF. Yes, so I'm going to actually be doing in-band repeating. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to choose a frequency that is going to be on the lower side of things here. So let me actually do this because I need to do a reset on these things here. Alrighty, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just choose... whoop, didn't want that. I think it's my first day with the radio, folks. I'm going to choose 144.51. Now, there's a reason I'm choosing 144.51. One, that's a repeater frequency that I have. And two, it's just a nice frequency there, and I need it for demonstration purposes. So with that being said, what I'm going to do is program this all up here. I'm going to just do an open frequency just because I'm in my house here and everything. And let me program this radio up here. Yes, we'll go ahead and take it out of post-production. I gotta make a few other changes on here because I like to screw around with my radios. And if you say you don't screw around with your radios, you are a liar. Okay, so I'm going to choose 145 there. Whoop. Once again, first day with the radio, my fault. Test 1 2, test 1 2. Okay, good. You can hear me. You can hear me on the radio. Okay. Now, here's what's going to happen. Yes, I'm not transmitting on the radio here, so no worry about the antenna. It's okay. It's okay, folks. What you want to do is you want to get a voltmeter. Now, I have one by Klein Tools on there. Only if there was someone in the chat who may have done a recent discussion about meters. Anyone? Anyone? All right. Okay, so here's what I have set up. I have it set up. I'm just going to turn the camera here. See this little thing here, ohms, and it's audio on there. So here's what I have mine set up. I'm going to turn it down here, but when I touch, it grounds out, right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move that out of the way for screen right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the core sense out of here, which is going to be the yellow. So the core out of the radio will then become the PTT on the device you're using. All right, does that make sense? So what I'm going to do here is the yellow is the core of the mobile radio, which is going to go to the PTT of the data radio. So yellow is going to go to PTT on here. Now, ground, as I said, is going to go to ground. So this is where these times are going to become there. So I got to put this ground also into this right here. But right now what I'm going to do, for sake of a better term, and just to do this so we don't have any hum, is I'm going to connect it. First day with the new fingers, I guess. We're just going to connect it to the chassis ground here. And I'll show you why we're going to do it, because we're just doing a test or experiment here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put this here. And now we have the core sense out of radio going into the PTT, which is going to go into our data radio here. Likewise, the core out of here is going to go to the PTT. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the red cable or wire here now. That goes, so this would normally, once again, if we take this and we ground this out, we're going to key this mobile here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do the core out, which happens to be pin 6. So I'm going to take, and this is where kind of, if you've ever gone ahead and played, what was that game where you, Twister, that's it, Twister. I couldn't even think of the words tonight. Twister. It's like colorful commentary, folks. It doesn't get better. Now what we're going to do, I'm going to screw this part down here after I unscrew it. While I'm getting everything together and quit looking like this is my first day here. Anybody seen a good movie lately? All right. Yeah, let's go in there. So now, alrighty. So now my PTT for my radio is going to come out of the core sense here. Alrighty. So let's just finish connecting it a little bit here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the brown wire here, which is my mic. So this is where it can get confusing. This is going to be the mic into my mobile. So I need to do the speaker out of this. So this is going to go ahead and be pin 9. So I'm going to unscrew pin 9 here. You know, in my opinion, this is what they should be teaching at ARRL classes and stuff like that. Okay. So now the mic in of the mobile, which is the brown wire, is the speaker out. Okay. So now it's going to go ahead and be the, oh, you know what? Hang on here. See, I can't read my directions. Green is core. See, that's why you have a lot of notes and you have a lot of paper and you have a lot of things there. So core is going to be green. And now yellow is going to be speaker out of the mobile, and that's going to go to the mic in, which is going to be pin 7. So that's going to be this one right here. You know, if my wife is watching, she'll now then go ahead and wonder why sometimes I yell down here and I act like that guy that was on the YouTube channels and he would do all those science projects and he would like burn himself or something like that, or electrocute himself. Okay, so there we go. We actually have things connected. Now, these extra wires here, this is for 9600 baud out, which we're not going to use. And then the other ones are actually the data bus control line. So let's get back to what I was talking about here. So now I'm going to take the meter. And here's what I'm going to do with my core sense. If it is, in essence, okay. Let me ask you a question. Okay, it says it there. Rob, good question. KZ9C. What is core? So core stands for Carrier Operated Relay, COR. So what that means is that is how one radio will key to the other one. So when you hear an active signal on one radio, it will either give an active low, which means it will go to ground, or it will go active high, which means it will go from ground to like 5 volts, and then it keys the other radio then. Does that make sense on there? Alrighty. So, with that being, do I have a bot in here? Is that what that is? I think that's a bot. Anyways, I'm going to watch this here. If that's a bot, I'm going to bop it out here, because I think it might be. Okay, I removed the user. My apologies if that was a bot in there. All right. All right, thank you. If anybody sees it here, Owen looks like it's a bot. Sorry about that. You know, hey, is that a good sign? If I have bots, does that mean that I'm popular? All right, sorry. Anyways, okay. Thank you. I have a couple people there. So yeah, so basically core is basically what causes the PTT. So it active, once again, in this case, when the signal is received, it's then going to go ahead and go into the radio here, and this will go and then give the ground sense, and you put on the PTT there. And that's the simplicity of a repeater on there. But getting back to what it is. So now here we go. We have that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on the core line. I'm going to put it on ground. And I'm not hearing anything. So that is a good sign, okay? That is a really good sign on there. So now I'm going to take, and while holding it down, I'm going to take the radio and key up. And I'm not hearing anything. So now that we don't see that, now let's go to voltage. Alrighty? What we're going to do is we're going to go to voltage, and we're going to change it to DC voltage. So now, here's where we're going to do the big thing, and I'm going to move this so you can see it here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure my core sense and my ground. Right now I'm not seeing anything. I'm seeing minimal voltage. That's normal. Okay, whoop. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to key up. By the way, if you have kids, that's what it's good for. And now I key up the radio. Test 1, 2, 3. Okay. Not seeing any voltage on there. That is a good thing on there. Okay. So we don't want to see really any sort of voltage that's taking place on there. And we'll actually go to full volt here instead of millivolts. So once again, we'll test our core and our ground. We're not seeing anything. Now, if I key up, what do you think is going to happen? Whoop. It'd help if I was on DC. Let me actually change that back here. There you go. Let me change range here. Sorry. All right. There we go. Now I'm on DC. By the way, learn your schematics. Okay, so now I'm keying up here, ground, and I'm keying up the core sense. I'm not seeing anything. Now I'm going to key the radio. What happens on the radio? It's receiving a signal. I'm not seeing anything on there. So we're good, okay? We're seeing good on there. So now, let's do this. Let's go ahead and let's plug it into the radio, and let's see what's going to go ahead and happen here. So I'm going to turn off my power supply. I'm going to turn over to here. I'm going to take, and I'm going to plug in my device here. And now, since we're going live, now we're going the big honkers. Time to put the antenna on there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to key up, or turn on the power before we key up. And radios have gone active. Now let's go ahead and see the biggest thing. So now what's happening, look at this. Here's an interesting thing that's happening. I am getting automatic transmit on there. Now I bet when I key up the radio, yep, it went away. So that's what my fear was here, folks. Here's what my fear is. What's happening is that when the radio, and this is a common problem here. So what happens on this radio here, when it is sitting idle, it's active low. When you transmit, it goes active high. This device needs to see active low on there for keying up. So here's what we're going to have to do for on the thing tonight here. We're going to just disconnect this wire here for now. And what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do something that happens actually a lot on repeaters. And what we'll have to do is, since this goes active high, so it goes plus 5 volts when it has a signal there, right? When it's sitting and a signal comes in, it goes plus 5 volts. We are going to have to build a relay for this. And we don't have the stuff for the relay right now. I'll order the stuff for a relay, and I'll do a follow-up video. Okay? And yes, Nico, you just said it on there. Boom. We could go ahead and do a relay to flip it. So kind of explaining what's going to happen here then is that when this is sitting idle doing nothing, it is going to go ahead and be ground. But when it catches a core sense, when it receives something in this radio, it's going to go to plus 5 volts. That plus 5 volts will actually be on the actual relay. So the magnetic flip of the relay, the power post of the relay. And then what will happen is we'll basically have the relay connected so that it's going to connect the ground. We'll cover that in another episode. But let's get back into it. So at least we have kind of one-way communication tonight, okay? Alrighty, so here we go. Now look what's happening. Nothing's happening, right? Because guess what? Nothing is coming through here right now. So that's going to be the drawback to it tonight. So what we're going to do is we're going to key up on this radio here first. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me turn up this radio here so you can hear it. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we're not hearing nothing. We're not seeing anything key up. But what we're going to do here, in this case, is now I'm going to take this radio. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, got a little feedback on there, but that's what happened. It keyed up the radio on there. So in all this going on, what you have happening here now is this radio is receiving a signal, and then it is going through and it is keying up the other radio on here. Let me actually do this here. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. I adjusted the audio a little bit better. So now here's the cool part about this whole thing. Ready? So I'll turn the volume down a little bit on this one here, just so we're not blowing out airs. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, here's an interesting part. If everybody sees, that's digital, right? This is analog. So I'm actually going in on DMR, and I am coming out on analog. Now, problem is that I'm getting feedback here, okay? And it's gonna happen. I mean, I'm so close with radios. But this is an interesting part about a conundrum that we have here, okay? And here's the conundrum that we have is that how can we process modes over? People are always asking me, John, how do you get mode A to mode B and mode, this and this and this and this? Folks, this is the way to do it, in my opinion. I want to stress my opinion, but this is the way to do it. So now what we're doing is we're having a digital radio, okay, key up, and now it's going from DMR digital to this here in digital. It's being then converted to analog, going out via analog through the cable into the radio here, and then it's being transmitted out in analog on this case. Okay? Alrighty. Nico just popped in the comments here. Good things. Definitely look up how to hook up a relay. You have basically a wiper, and then you have your normally closed, normally open ports on there. And you know what? I'm going to do an episode on relays. I'm just going to do an episode on relays, follow up to this. I don't know if it's going to be a full episode or if it will just be kind of an upload team replay kind of thing like that on there or whatever. So that's what we have now here. So in essence, look how long it took. I mean, we're in a thing here. I don't even know what time it is. Here we are, 8:44. So within 45 minutes, not even that, we were just going ahead and chatting and blah 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 blah. And here you go. Now we just took a DMR radio and interfaced it into an analog radio. But as they say, and Billy May said, but wait, there's more. Okay. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead. Let's go digital on this baby here. Okay. Now we're going to switch this over to digital, and in this case, fusion. Now, folks, here's the ultimate test. How does it sound? Whoop, little overmodulated. Let me back off here a little bit. And that's probably on my DMR radio. But, and I'm also getting a little feedback, so I'm kind of, if you're looking into the corner, now I'm crossing over from DMR to digital. Now, let me go one step further here. Okay, this, I will go ahead and do it this way even. I'm going to actually go and put it into VW mode. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Test 1, 2, 3. Okay, wanted to make sure I was in VW mode. Now, test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it went back to DN, so I got to set it up on here. But now here's what it is. We've just crossed DMR physically to fusion. Could we do this with other things? Could we hook this DMR radio up into a P25 radio? Oh, hell yeah. Easily we could. Okay. Can we take this radio and go analog into it and then do an analog radio? And the answer is yes, it is here. So let me go ahead and actually pull up my manual here real quick. You guys can't see it off screen there. But we're going to go ahead and change it from channel 1 to channel 2 here. So I'm going to unplug the radio real quick here. And I'm going to get kind of granular because it's difficult to see here. But channel value, so pin 5 has got to go down. Whoop. And this is the crappy part about pins. Okay. So now what we're going to do is, it's all binary switches, right? It's all binary switches. But anyways, so I'm going to do that. Now it should actually be an analog. So now we switched over to analog. Alrighty. Now we're going to go ahead and plug it back in. Let me just minimize this here. So while we're all doing that, test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm actually doing analog. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So now you actually can do it in analog. And what I'll do is I'll actually flip it over to analog and put my mode over to analog. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So now what we have here is we just have that pure simple fact of thing there is that we've taken this and we've gone, now we're going analog to analog. So can we go ahead and do more of this? Yes. I mean, ultimately, a device like this, the sky is the limit. And that's why I love these radios all so much, because you're basically just flip of a switch here. Now I changed modes. Now I'll go back to digital. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Test 1, 2, 3. There we go. Now we are actually going from DMR over to analog. We've put it in a digital mode or fusion mode. Boom, boom, boom. Okay? So that's so there you go. That's really the whole concept of what this is on the bench here. And there. So what is the purpose of tonight? Let me go back to my main screen so people can see me here. So what is the purpose of tonight? The purpose of tonight is kind of, like I said, that follow-up and ending out of the anatomy and physiology of the repeater. And to go ahead and show us is that our limitations with crossing over modes like this is literally just that, a limitation in and of itself. You can take, and as long as you can match audio. So one half of it is doing what we did here, where we are basically mashing wires together. The output of radio A goes to the input of radio B and vice versa, and yada, 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 yada. But what you can do then is literally it's limitless. Because I tell people, I've seen people that have taken two handheld radios. And you know what? Handheld radio, it's great. They do have microphone jacks on the side on there and everything like that. And yeah, you can buy some Vox adapters. It's a standard 2-pin kind of jacks on there. So you can have this aspect of things where it's like, okay, I can use Vox adapters and this. Yeah, that's great and that's fine. But realistically, what you're going to see is you are going to have better success when you're using core. Because when you're using a core sense, sometimes called COS, carrier operated squelch, that's kind of where it comes into from like the packet days. And then carrier operated relay, which basically is what this is right here, which is carrier operated relay. You're going to have a better success with that, because then once it actually sees the actual sense of stuff, you know, that hey, there's a ground sense here, and it keys up the radio, you'll have a better time of going ahead and doing that. Now, what is the application? I always like to go ahead and say, what is the application on this? The application on this is pretty simple and pretty easy. It basically, and at least for me, allows me to only have to carry one radio, and I can then cross out to other modes. So let's say, for example, I have a DMR only radio and I want to talk on Fusion. Well, how am I going to do that? Well, I can't, because guess what? I have a Fusion mobile, I'm not in the mobile, and I have a DMR handheld. What can I do? Well, I can do this. I can go from here to this little device like we showed over here, and then I can go over to the mobile radio there. What about, can this be expanded into other modes? Heck yeah. In my car, I could take my P25 radio now, key up on my P25 radio, if I have a P25 capable receiver, and then go into the radio here in my car, which is like a little radio, like let's say this, or even another mobile radio, or however it is. And now my P25 can cross over to my Fusion radio, and I actually have that in there. So then that way, when I'm on duty public safety and I need to be able to listen to my stuff and I'm in my personal vehicle or nearby, I could just go ahead and switch it over to, oh, this is the simplex frequency I'm using, talk on P25 into my car switches over Fusion, and the Fusion sends it out over the air. But once again, the biggest thing I want to say is audio levels are going to be a key important part on here. In this little device here, there is a large series of little audio devices you can set. So for an example, in the software, you can set your speaker output on there, which is one thing that you're going to want to go ahead and do. So, you might say, hey, I set it at 5 mid-range. 5 may be enough, 5 may be too much, 5 may be too little. You're going to have to tweak about it. So don't think necessarily it's going to be plug and play. I take, 15, 20 minutes, hook up the wires, and all should be good. No, there's going to have to be the balancing of audios. And depending on what kind of radio you get, if you use an amateur radio, you may or may not have audio adjustments. If you get in and you start to interface it into, let's say, business or LMR or public safety based radios, there may be software adjustments you can do. You may be able to take it and put it into flat audio in versus a modulated type audio that needs to go in there on there. So there are lots of different little things that you can go ahead and integrate and do with these after you set the audio, and really the sky is the limit on there. But this was, I thought, kind of fun just to do a little project on the bench here. Like I said, a lot of people are asking. So yeah, this is a Maxon data radio. They're really readily available out there. You can contact me if you have any questions on there or anything like that. To do that. Once again, the parts. I know everybody likes Amazon. This part here, I think this was pre-COVID. This was like a $5 or $6 part. Some of them actually come with a full case. You can actually put in a black case on there and then plug it into there. This is a Maxon. People are asking me what kind of handheld it is there, so I'm going to do this. This is a Maxon MD6124, so an MD6000 series on there. I like it. It's a really cool little radio down there. Really simple, really easy. I don't believe that DMR needs to be just Motorola or Kenwood or Harris or whoever's making a DMR radio. I feel it's better than some of the more Chinese version of radios that are out there, but that's just my opinion on there. But I like this radio here. I did interface it with an FTM 300, but guess what? The FTM 6000 on here has the same data plug on there. I have a Linko over here too that has a data plug. So really anything that actually has a data plug that you can actually key into it, as well as you can go ahead and see what it is, then yeah, you have the ability to interface it, and then you are good to go on there. So thank you very much for going ahead and tuning into this episode of Communications and Cigars. I hope you enjoyed it. We have a few more, like I said, on the bench ones that we're going to be looking at. Maybe we might do these about once a month or something like that. So if you do have something or some ideas for just a show in general, right along the bottom here, communications-cigars at jjkcom.com. So communications-cigars at jjkcom.com. Feel free to send me an email on there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for seeing the show. If you do like it, I'd like to hear from you. And then if you want to, hit the subscribe button. So have a good evening, folks. Stay safe. And if you have a cigar, enjoy them.